Ladies and gentlemen, it's a real pleasure to be in Athens. We meet at a time of profound uncertainty in Europe and at increasingly risky times. Our collective security architecture, which our founding fathers and mothers built over decades and at great cost, is in shambles. To frame our discussion today, I wish to offer 5 short points presenting the security challenges we face in Europe and the responses they require. First, the erosion of fundamental norms and principles of international law is one of the biggest challenges we face today. Once rules do not matter to some, they will not matter for anyone, and that becomes a problem for everyone. That is why principles must be applied to all, without exception and double standards, to safeguard our common security. My second point relates to how states are reacting to today's growing instability. Across our region, security postures are hardening, and states are investing more and more in arms. Global military expenditure reached almost $3 trillion in 2025, a 30% increase since 2021, and almost twice the level of military spending at the end of the Cold War. Based on this trend, the UN estimates that global defense spending will double again by 2035 to $6 trillion. Meanwhile, investment in multilateralism, diplomacy, confidence building, and risk reduction continues to fall. I understand the need in insecure times to invest in deterrence, in military deterrence. Hard capabilities can send a signal of resolve, but they also shape threat perceptions and can increase uncertainty. History has taught us that such imbalances do not produce sustainable security. Rather, they can increase mistrust and raise the risk of miscalculation. Security cannot and will never be guaranteed by military deterrence alone. During the Cold War, we managed mistrust through dialogue too, and this ultimately yielded historic breakthroughs. We will need to recover that same spirit. Third, the difficult situation is compounded by the pace of technology. Artificial intelligence is advancing more rapidly than the rules governing it. Cyber capabilities and autonomous systems, including drones, have radically changed the speed and character of war. The idea of a fixed front line is increasingly outdated. The theater of operations has expanded across both the physical and cyber domains. We see this every day in Ukraine, and we see it more and more around Ukraine too, including not far away from these shores in recent months. Taken together, these developments are making the security environment more unstable and more unpredictable. Against this backdrop, and here I get to my fourth point, the network of arms control agreements and norms that we had developed over decades has been abandoned or fallen into misuse. The expiration of New START earlier this year means that, for the first time in more than half a century, we are operating in a world without a functioning US-Russia nuclear arms control agreement. Key conventional arms control pillars, such as the Treaty on Conventional Armed Forces in Europe and the Treaty on Open Skies, have effectively ceased to function. Their absence means that today, even small incidents can carry serious consequences. At the same time, we must be honest, these instruments were designed for a different era. Since then, military doctrines and capabilities have evolved significantly. Forces are more mobile, more precise, and more integrated across domains, rendering traditional arms control approaches based on static numerical ceilings increasingly obsolete. This is why adaptation of our tools is necessary. My fifth and last point relates to the future. Where does all this take us? What we need now more than ever, is to step back before we reach the edge of the cliff. Stop now and begin rebuilding a security dialogue that can gradually lay the foundation of a more stable European security architecture. This will not happen overnight. First and foremost, we need to create the conditions for serious diplomatic engagement on ending the war in Ukraine through a negotiated settlement. It is everyone's duty to support efforts to end the war and support the sides to resume negotiations to that end. And once the war ends, we need an honest discussion on how we got here, what went wrong, and how to rebuild a functioning security architecture in Europe. We are at a critical juncture. The risks of escalation are serious, and they are only growing. We need to manage these risks that would otherwise continue to threaten our common European security. We cannot change geography, but we can choose how to manage it. I believe this requires dialogue, it requires transparency, it requires mechanisms that reduce risks and prevent escalation. Above all, it remains in the interest of each and every one of us to build a more stable and predictable security environment in our geography. Ladies and gentlemen, this organization, the organization I represent, the OSCE, remains uniquely placed to host and facilitate that discussion. It is the only regional security organization where all key actors, including those on opposite sides, sit around the same table. Even and especially in times of profound disagreement, diplomacy remains our most powerful tool to reduce tensions, to manage risks in the context of mistrust. The OSCE was founded on a simple but enduring recognition: security cannot be built against one another. As hard as it may be, it must be built with one another. That principle has not changed, and our responsibility to uphold it has never been greater. I look forward to your questions.
Well, it's fascinating to hear you outline a problem, especially coming after we've been talking about the increase in defense spending, which you refer to, and clearly your view that the investment in confidence building on security architecture has been insufficient. So I'd like to probe, if I may, into what you envisage is necessary on that front, because the increase in arms spending is going to happen. That's not something you can really, it is happening and it's going to clearly continue. So how proactive can the OSCE be in this process, as opposed to being just, as you put it, the available forum for when the willingness to create such an architecture exists?
Thank you for this question. Actually, this is the only pan-European security organization which still includes Russia. Russia consists 42% geographically of the European continent. And the whole Russia is 6.5 million square kilometers bigger than the European continent. So this is a geographical fact. Despite all our disagreements, we cannot stop our engagement with Russia. We cannot stop diplomacy with Russia. At a time of a very high risk of mutually assured destruction, our forefathers and foremothers thought that our cumulative destruction power can bring the end of the war. It is not only a threat towards each other, but together, cumulatively, it is a threat to the world. So that was the reason why they agreed that this is a global existential threat, and we should get together around the same table, adversaries as well. So OSCE was not founded as a like-minded organization. It was founded among adversary blocs. And the idea was how to discuss and contain the global existential threat that we have created together. it is as relevant today as it was then. Therefore, we need to bring back the tools that we have developed throughout the decades and also update them. Today, we are not only talking about the nuclear deterrence, but the world is changing. AI is going to define the power of the future. And in that too, there are two poles, three poles evolving. Europe is not in the race, actually. The race is still between the US and China and Russia are now working together. So the balance of tomorrow, in the tomorrow's power paradigm, will be between these two poles. And I don't think that the arguments that US stopped protecting Europe is not really valid and acceptable.
So I can understand, and I think we could probably in this room all accept the challenges that you outline, and also all accept the value of an organization like the OSCE that you lead as providing a forum for discussions that may not be taking place or cannot take place in the same way elsewhere. I suppose my question or challenge to you is how proactive the OSCE can be in this process. So do you just sit back and say, well, we provide a table that everybody can sit around when they're ready? Or do you actually come up with suggestions for architecture or of the sort that will be updated for the new realities that you can propose and convene discussions around? Or is that beyond your remit?
No, actually, we need to navigate the discussion and determine the course of the conversation. For that, you need to come up with some ideas and put it on the table and ask the participating states, the 57 of them, to start negotiating the real issues that is a threat to us together. I mean, yes, there are threat perceptions among the participating states from each other, but there is also a threat to all of us because of the growing military spending and new rearmament wave.
So are you doing that? Are there OSCE initiatives in this direction?
I mean, we have, as you know, the OSCE is based on the concept of comprehensive security. By that we mean there are three baskets, all the components of a larger security concept, the military security, the environment and development, economic basket, and the third one is the rule of law, democracy, and human rights. All these are, of course, discussed in the context of broader security concept. And we have now an ongoing security dialogue, an informal security dialogue among the participating states, including the diverse voices in the room. And we have to make this work. There is no other way.
Well, you have to crucial to your mission, presumably, is to maintain trust of all sides. You have to be the trusted venue for everyone. How do you establish that trust or maintain that trust?
Absolutely. First, the rules are there. The rules that brought us together, the principles that brought us together are there. So my job is to defend them and ask each and every participating state to fulfill their obligations, their commitments to these rules and principles. This is, of course, something that goes without saying. I mean, it is a duty of each and every participating state to stay committed to the goals and objectives of the organization. But these these rules and principles are, at the same time, the rules and principles of international law. These are universal, and we need to not limit them to our geography, but we together should work together for the continuation of the universal acceptance of these rules and principles.
So in the interest of time, this probably has to be the last question. But I want to, I get the sense that when Europe in particular was doing agreements in the era where there was an interest and a willingness to make more agreements, the OSCE had a very active role to play. You were monitoring agreements. I mean, still to some extent there are missions, but they're kind of legacy missions. And you provided a very active forum for this sort of activity. In recent times, it's kind of retreated into as far as the general public is concerned, I think, retreated into the background. What you seem to be saying is it needs to come into the foreground again. Is that a fair assessment? And if so, how do you manage to do it, apart from speaking at forums like this and making a plea for it to happen?
Yes, this is a fair assessment. Actually, we have to bring the discussion, the conversation back. And for that, we have now, for instance, just a week ago, circulated a non-paper on how we can update the tools that we have developed together on early warning, on arms control.
So a non-paper, just to translate into ordinary speak, is a discussion document that isn't an official document.
Yes, this is a food for thought document. It is a document that will just kick off the conversation. This is what we have done. And there are also, in parallel, an informal discussion already going on about strategic dialogue within the organization among the 57. But the challenge here is, we cannot give up on diplomacy. Not talking to each other is not diplomacy. Lack of communication is not diplomacy. Even at times of war, you need diplomacy, and you should continue to use diplomacy. That is the main message. And I would also bring to the attention of the audience that, for instance, during my election to this job, we, together with Greece, Turkey, together with Greece, we joined our forces and nominated two names, me and the director of ODIHR together. That is also, a message to the 57. Two countries, allies, but at the same time considered as
we heard, yes.
We heard before, as rivals in quotation, came together and made a successful diplomatic démarche. When Greek and Turkish ambassadors were démarching for the election of us two, people were shocked. But they shouldn't be, This should be the way for diplomacy.